All right, I did not get the notification of a cloud recording, but I do see the little cloud there. So, hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse, your weekly dose of insider DevOps trends, AWS news, and Terraform insights, all sourced from our sweetops community, plus a live Q&A you can't find anywhere else. It's October 9th, 2024. I'm your host, Eric Osterman. Real quick, I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator for AWS infrastructure that helps teams who are overwhelmed and want to deploy their software faster. We do this by leveraging our over 200 Terraform modules that have been battle tested and downloaded over 100 million times. So no matter where you find yourself on this journey, we are here to help your team out. Just head over to cloudposse.com/meet. Again, cloudposse.com/meet. Answer a few quick questions and you'll get the chance to book a meeting with me directly. So how can you maximize today's session? Well, first off, our format's very informal. You can engage as much as you'd like and ask questions. If you're curious about any of Cloud Posse's open source or modules and tools, go for it. This is a great place to ask. And for those on the recording, you can join these calls live every single week. Just go to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, cloudposse.com/officehours. So we're going to be posting a recording of today's session to our YouTube channel. So everything's recorded, and you can find that by going to youtube.com/cloudposse. Again, youtube.com/cloudposse. And this video will be posted there in a few hours. Okay, let's get into the actual announcements. All right. Well, the first one that I'm really excited about is, if you haven't seen it yet, we have relaunched Cloud Posse's marketing website. If you were always interested in what Cloud Posse did, but were confused because our last marketing site wasn't the best, well, here's your chance to check it out again. I'm curious in all your feedback. Please DM me if there's anything that I should take a look at. So that's cloudposse.com. All right, next announcement. All right, so this is this was shared in the Office Hours Slack as well. There's a few of these tools out there. This one was pretty clean. If you are allocating out networks, for example, this is something we frequently do in our reference architecture as one of the design decisions. Like if you go to docs.cloudposse.com, learn, and where was it? Network and DNS design decisions, your VPC and subnet CIDR strategy. This is one of those design decisions that you need to consider when building out your infrastructure. Also, like the organizational supernet that you're going to need for your network allocations and so forth. So that's why something like this is pretty nice when you're building out your infrastructure. You need to think about, if you want to connect your VPCs together with something like a transit gateway, you need to ensure that you have non-overlapping IP addresses, and you need to ensure that you have IP space allocated for each region that you're going to operate now and plan to operate in the future. So a lot of foresight thinking needs to go into how you're going to allocate that. Also, whether you're using ECS or EKS has implications on how large your subnets need to be, because EKS is very IP hungry. So this tool makes that easy. You specify your range. You can split that out as much as you'd like as you go and get your ranges set up. Any questions on this or something to add? All right. The next one is, I feel like we brought up another tool similar to this recently. One thing that's proven itself as a very effective syntax is like the pipeline notation, familiar to anyone who's operated on the shell for a long time. That morphed into, an awesome tool called JQ that helps you extract data using this pipeline type notation on the command line. Now a tool has come out called SQ. I believe it's backed by a startup that is making data wrangling easier, allowing you to leverage the same kind of JQ queries that you're familiar with to extract data from databases. This was also trending on Hacker News.
Is this from Steam Pipe or is that something different?
Well, it's similar to like something you could do with Steam Pipe, but this is not Steam Pipe. I don't
Oh,
believe.
okay.
I don't believe there's
I,
any association with Steam Pipe, is there?
I don't know. It just looked pretty similar to like their interface. I haven't actually dug into this one.
And Steam Pipe's also open source, so that would be an alternative. So this is Steam Pipe. We brought it up a lot in office hours as a cool way to kind of ETL data between different data sources. All right. Next announcement is something I just saw out of the corner of my eye, is that it's official. Atlantis is moving over, to the CNCF Slack. Got it. So I missed that. So that's cool, but I thought they were moving over to the GitHub org. That is not yet happening, or might not happen, since Atlantis is already in its own org. So yeah, so Atlantis has operated its own Slack community for a long time. That's the one that they're going to be shutting down or moving over into the CNCF Slack. Also, OpenTofu support is official in this version. So that was the major feature add for this version of Atlantis. All right. Next is repository level GitHub action metrics. So previously, this was announced at the organizational level. Now, for example, if you are interested in just optimizing the workflows and runs within your repository in the org, you can get that now. Unfortunately, this is a GitHub Enterprise feature. So if you're not in GitHub Enterprise, you're not getting those metrics. The alternative is you can ingest those metrics into something like Datadog if you're already paying for that. I believe there's some way to get those metrics out also in OTel, but I'm not 100% sure. This was something that was discussed, I believe, last week in sweetops Slack, but I forgot to bring it up in office hours. So Terraform HashiCorp license, BSL license, Terraform 1.10 has a new experiment, or a proposal at the very least. Well, here's where I'm a little bit confused. So the provider is not BSL licensed, so this will, any changes to the provider should just work fine for OpenTofu as well. But the proposal is to allow to adopt the pattern similar to how security groups work. It used to be that in security groups, all the rules had to be in line. That made it difficult for certain patterns where you wanted to have other modules, for example, add rules to your security group. However, it introduced a problem when they fixed that, where if you have other modules, for example, adding rules to your security group, you could no longer detect if those other rules were put there nefariously, if you will, or with ClickOps. So they would never be deleted. This also causes problems then if you're trying to destroy the security group, because there will be these rules that haven't been destroyed that were created some other way. So this proposal is bringing back the best of both. The ability to do something that accomplished the same as inline rules in security groups, but a construct to kind of define exclusivity of which of how those are managed. This is where I don't know the technical details enough to explain it, other than this is helping you address the issue of detecting and remediating drift when you do a plan, ensuring that only the rules that are managed by this exclusive resource are intentional. Matt, can you do a better job explaining this for me? Are you okay?
I'm actually not sure that I can, to be honest,
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
haven't read through how this is supposed to work. I only read the marketing speak. I don't know how it works under the
Yeah.
hood.
Yeah. So the subsequent issue down below here is how can we move to how can you migrate to this pattern from the inline blocks, and that's not addressed by the moved block or otherwise. So Lauren has been a big advocate of this in the past. There's other conversations in sweetops about this specific problem. Um, we've talked also at length about this in our security group module about some of the challenges managing security group rules. So if you're all at all interested, I'll share that as well. Yeah, this is the long write up here about all the problems that, and many of these will be mitigated if this is adopted. I'll post that in the office hours. And last announcement is related to the top one, because as I was following the issues raised here, I landed on an OpenTofu issue, and it was heartwarming to see. Apparently Mart now is active in OpenTofu. He's been hired by Spacelift and now is focused on OpenTofu full time. He's a familiar face if any of you have been commenting on Terraform issues related to the AWS provider and the Hashi and the Terraform core products. So I expect to see a lot of thought leadership taking place now here. That's all the announcements I had.
What was unclear to me from the first relationship management resources or whatever they're called is that going to necessitate a change in Terraform itself or just in the AWS provider? And then if they do that in the AWS provider, then I guess it's fine. But if they do it in Terraform, then I guess presumably that would mean, I guess they would have to do it in the provider framework, which is still open source, and they would send it out because
Yeah.
we're like teetering on that like edge of as soon as they make one of these changes that breaks like that only works with Terraform 1.7 plus.
Yeah.
Now we have a completely diverged like subsystem between
Yeah.
OpenTofu and Terraform.
Yeah. Yeah, and so what's interesting to me was that Lauren commented on this related to 1.10 alpha, but I'm not sure if there's a strict relationship or not, or let's see, implements exclusive relationship management resources. Also, I believe a lot of the management of the AWS provider is actually these days by AWS.
Yeah, and I I believe that AWS has provided some SME engineers to contribute, but like they're not the custodians of the whole thing.
Yeah, so I think that there might be no relationship between 1.10 and this proposal.
Yeah, I actually just found like the um on GitHub like the proposal, and it's definitely with related to the AWS provider, nothing to do with Terraform. So sorry, I thought they were related at first, and then that would have been bad, but this doesn't seem like an issue.
I'm so annoyed by this read AI bot. think we gotta like block read AI. Because I can't. I always have to find the meeting group chat. There we go. All right. All right, that's all I got. Any other announcements or questions based on those other interesting things that caught your eye? That's an open-ended question to anyone.
I just hopped in. Are we at Q&A now?
Yep.
Awesome. Perfect timing.
Yeah,
So
time to
I run into this issue, and I feel like someone here has probably solved this already. What do you do when you hit like 1,000+ lines in your GitHub action log output? Like any workarounds that you folks recommend beyond not having 1,000+ lines in your GitHub actions output? And I'm talking about like a live stream. Like you don't see it till after the job is done. And so I guess to back up a little, I'm running like a Terraform plan using some GitHub actions. And then I'm doing a lot of changes. And then it's like 1,000 lines of output, 1,000+ lines. And I can't see all of it there. And I have to either cancel the job and rerun it. And I'm just wondering to like see what the output is and then have it proceed to the next step. I was just wondering if there's any like way to like get access to the logs sooner than that.
I thought this was something that they had just announced, like they fixed or were improving.
That's what I thought too. It was like a week or two ago. There was an
Yeah,
announcement.
something recently.
Maybe it just hasn't rolled out completely.
Streaming log. Here, this is what, now as soon as you open logs, you'll see the last. Oh, okay. So this is the problem you're seeing. You're not seeing the preceding logs.
Well, I'm not actually seeing the last 1,000. I
Oh,
don't, so, but it looks like Michael Jenkins has his hand up. So maybe he's
Yeah,
hey,
done.
Michael.
yeah, I was just wondering, do you want to see a summary of the plan after the plan has run? Like what I'm saying, you run Terraform plan in one stage, and you want to see it before you apply it, or are you trying to watch it live as it runs?
I'm trying to, yeah, it's the former where
The
I see
former.
it.
Okay.
I have like I'm using the manual approve action.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's also deployments and environments, which we have on our tier, but the manual approve action, if you're familiar with it, is a pretty nice experience for GitHub Actions.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one, but I have written a like a funky little action, or maybe even like a little script that reads the output from previous Terraform plan steps. Basically, what you do is you pipe, and I forget the name of the variable, but there's a variable that represents a file that you can pipe output to, and then you just write a little script that parses that output. And I mean, I'll see if I can find it before we're finished here today, and I'll share a little screenshot or
Yeah, no
something.
worries.
But
Do
if I
you
can't
mean
get it
this
to you
one,
today,
Michael?
yes, that is
Mhm.
the one. So if you pipe your plan to that environment variable, later on down the road, you can totally do whatever you want to with it. So I've got a script that takes a look at that, and if it's like a I mean, it does a little bit more than this pass or fail type stuff. But if you're destroying something, it'll give you an indicator. If you're changing something, it'll give you a different indicator. If there's no change, then it'll give you an indicator. And yeah, and then like the second part of it is you can write to the summary of your GitHub Actions run, and it'll
Yeah,
show you pretty much like a table, kind of like that.
got it. Yeah, I think the Atmos runner, some of the Atmos features do that too, right, Eric?
Yeah, exactly. We're using another tool. I forget what it was called, but
TF, I can tell you.
yeah, because yeah, I didn't see you there, Pepe.
This is my
Yeah.
day today in the last 3 weeks. So it's called TFCMT.
Yeah, TFCMT is the tool we use. And you can combine that with comments. You can combine that with job summaries, however you want to use it. I'll post it in the chat.
Cool.
Yeah, if this is something that's maintained and like a little bit more performant than what I'm recommending, I would totally go with it.
Cool. Michael, yeah, before jumping on this call, my idea was I have this file on disk. I could upload it to S3, create a pre-signed URL, and then post that back. But that also sounded pretty hacky. So all these ideas that we've talked about here feel.
But yeah, I think I misunderstood the problem. I thought you just, while you're debugging it, you were frustrated you couldn't view all the logs. You just want to produce a summary of it?
I want to see all the logs. I'm assuming that I could push the output. So whether it's the summary or the logs before the summary, I like to see all of it from start to finish. And so yeah, with the default GitHub Actions output, it sounded like they were fixing it, but they did not. Or I don't think.
Yeah. Also, job summaries are also limited to 1 meg, and Terraform output is easily over 1 meg, depending on what you're doing. Especially if it's this thing you were telling me about last week about the teralets.
I know. This is my own teralets. I won't speak as badly about it because I built it. But yeah, it was just a bunch of plan actions. It was this long text. So it's actually performing Terraform. It's just I was deleting like 400 things or changing 400 things. And then I see the output and I'm like, I don't know if I'm destroying things or I'm changing things. I just know I hit apply and it'll apply. So wasn't ideal, but yeah. Duffy, it looked like something to add.
Yeah. I've raised and lowered my hands because I had a hacky solution. I didn't know if it was worth discussing it, but it's in line with what you were talking about in S3 bucket. Actions have attachments, so you can just dump to a text file, and at the end of your workflow, upload that as an attachment, and it will be attached to that workflow run, and you can download it. Now, that's not a good UX, but the entire output could be stored in a text file and downloaded to your machine when you needed it.
Yeah, and to be clear, you can actually get all of the logs. Like after the job is done, you could go look at view raw logs, and it's all there. It just doesn't do it when it's actually streaming. So it's like the same approach, except artifact form. Pepe, sounded like you had another solution.
Well, I'm working with Atmos, so I'm using the Cloud Posse actions. But you could potentially just grab the GitHub Actions Terraform plan storage action and modify it a little bit to save the plan on an S3. This actually basically what it does is saves the plan and creates a log for each plan that you create, and then the apply action basically grabs the plan. So there is like an input and output of the saved plan of the PR to then apply it after merge. So you can use this one as a base for if you really want to save the whole log in it, or just the plan file within an S3 packet to retrieve it later down the road in your workflow.
Cool. Yeah, I was actually thinking about switching over to the Atmos action as I've like gone down these rabbit holes. Do you guys happen to have a video of like what the workflow looks like from a DevX or DevOps, whatever you want to call it?
I don't know that we have a published video of that anywhere. Happy to.
Well, actually, although the video that you're on right now, is this like a demo?
This goes over kind of what we saw as the problem, what we wanted as features, and here are some screenshots so you can see what DevX looks like. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've had what started off as a 10 lines of code is now over 100. I'm like, no, I should probably go use some other action, i.e. Atmos or somewhere. But we've also added in like some Slack notifications to make it more friendly for how we do our work.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's always one of those things. It seems so simple until you unravel the layers and the complexity explodes.
Oh yeah, the complexity explodes. I will say though, compare like taking a GitHub Actions-based approach versus using a provider of like, what are the managed tacos providers? The concurrency is so nice. Like, it's so I wrote a couple scripts, happy to share them with you folks if you find them valuable. But I spent like an hour prompting on ChatGPT. I'm like, give me a script that allows me to kick off a workflow based off file names. So I have like a tofu YAML file, and I just type in the name. I could kick it off across the whole org, across all my repos. And then the cron scheduling is so nice to just have plans run. Then it's Slack notice. I'm like, oh, this is so great. Like, I kind of feel bad because I'm not really supporting revenue-wise of those projects, but there's such a huge enterprise paywall to get the features they want, and it's so cost prohibitive, like for some of that stuff. But I should start sponsoring Tofu at this point, like maybe $10 a month. But going the GitHub Actions approach, just like building, just like buying, building versus buying, but just the concurrency is absolutely insane with GitHub Actions, especially enterprise. I'm never going to hit that limit. Like I doubt, well, not anytime soon. I think you get like 5,000 concurrent runs, but appreciate all the info. And
I mean, the biggest thing about GitHub Enterprise is it gets costly to run the runs themselves unless you have the self-hosted runners. But yeah.
Oh yeah, we have like, I mean, we're a small team, so we're not coming close to that limit. And once we do, they're self-hosted or I mean, the fact that you can just go self-hosted for free though, without having to go through another paywall is pretty absurd. I mean, it's how it should be. So I don't want to say it's absurd, but it seems pretty convenient. I pay $20 a month for even a single seat, and I get access to all of that.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm not going to sell everyone here on GitHub Enterprise, but it is.
We scale out to thousands of, or hundreds at least, of concurrent runners with GitHub Actions using Atmos and Terraform, and it's just really nice. I think Spacelift charges, at a minimum hundreds of dollars per runner a month. So yeah, to do, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars a month to do the same thing on one of the commercial platforms. So that you can basically do it in air quotes for free on GitHub Actions. You just have to pay the complexity cost. That it's not, some things are a little bit harder to do with GitHub Actions for sure.
Yeah. One thing on the note of using Terraform, just generally, I don't output my plan and pass that into the apply. Is that I tried it once and it was getting like a different result on the apply and it would fail. Have you guys run into problems where, like, does that ever?
I can tell you kind of like the theory behind it, at least why we do it, and and then you can make your own decision. So, and I was the one who actually wrote initially the stuff that Pepe was talking about with the plan storage and everything. So, the idea behind it is we have an enterprise customer that sponsored this whole thing that it got started with, who was really concerned that they were viewing a plan and then they were hitting like, in GitHub, they were hitting like approves, or they're doing a manual action, like approval to deploy that that plan out to production. And then sometimes something else had slipped in and the plan was no longer valid. And if you don't provide a plan, Terraform will just run plan again, and it will then just like run, apply your changes based on what the current state of the infrastructure is, not the state that actually got reviewed and approved by the original person who approved it. And they have a formal change management process. So like literally they're taking the plan output and attaching it to a change record, and someone is reviewing that and saying, yes, this is valid. We want to do that and apply it, etc. So by running the plan, storing the plan, we store it in S3, and we store some metadata about it in DynamoDB, so we can look those plans up. And then on merge, or in this case, like whatever the trigger is to actually deploy, you then retrieve the plan from plan storage and apply it. And if you get an error, that actually means that your infrastructure has changed since that plan was run, and it's an indicator to go rerun a plan and reapprove the new plan, because what you thought you were applying by approving that plan that you looked is no longer what you are actually applying to your infrastructure. So it's actually like the fact that it fails is actually like the intended behavior. Like if it like can't apply that because something underlying has changed. So that's kind of the thought behind the whole process.
Yeah, my experience was it kept failing and the plans looked the same visually, like you see the output, but when I feed in the file, it would just fail. And I'm not sure if it was an issue with my providers, because I'm using a combination of Opsgenie and AWS in the same
Well, I was going to say this is classic Terraform, though. Plans are just best guess, best effort of what's going to happen. Not everything, for example, is validated against an API. Like if you're trying to launch an EC2 instance and you specify a wrong instance type or a type that you don't have permission to, that might not be caught during a plan phase, but it will be caught during the apply phase. So in real world Terraform, you need to have really robust error handling and a way to follow up and follow through when things fail. So one of the things you get with the GitHub Actions that we provide with Atmos is a way to create GitHub issues for failures. And that way, no change is left behind.
Got it. Cool. Appreciate all the context on that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Oh, we got another 28 minutes here or so. Any more questions we can get to today? Pepe.
Well, actually, it's not a well, maybe it's a question, but it's I actually never used before GitHub environments. I use not with deployment with environment rules, only to use secrets and environment and variable variables. So now I'm actually trying to use these things. Is the problem I have is how the developer sees the view of the deployments happening on a PR. Because, for example, in my case, I have a PR that is going to change one component, and it shows a deployment done of a plan, but the plan is not really the deployment. So is there a way to actually do that, change the status for the deployment to be when the merge happens instead of the workflow run successfully, which in this case will be the plan workflow?
My quick answer to you would be only target the deployment environment on deploy, like on actually merge, and then like the plan, just run the plan not targeting an environment, but run the apply targeting an environment.
Interesting. Okay. So I see what you're saying. All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
The problem,
I see
that's tricky now. The problem is that what I'm doing that is a bit different than what you guys do, and is that I am actually targeting changes per environment based on stack changes within the stacks folder. And then, so for example, someone changes a stack of development, it will then trigger the environment development within GitHub Actions. Yeah, and then
yeah, that's easy. Just in your, in your actual like workflow, you have a spot where for that step you're specifying environment, right? Like for each one of those things. And I'm saying on the plan step, you just don't target the environment, but on the apply step, you do target the environment of dev.
But he might be requiring environment.
Oh, unless you need secrets.
That's the reason, is because we're in Azure in this case for this project, and we are passing the environment secrets, which are actually the provider's credentials, to then log in and run the stuff against the environments.
Pepe, why not have a plan environment and an apply?
That's what I was about to say.
A plan environment and
an apply environment, and that allows you then to have different protections on plan versus apply.
That's interesting.
And obviously, like you could do something like approval gates in the apply version if you want someone to actually go in and click like, yes, it's okay to deploy, versus plan just runs without any, without any approvals needed, basically.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. The problem right now is that we have an account per environment, and we are moving towards having the automation account or management account, or the root account, basically, where you could potentially, assume a role in sort of all the different subscriptions. Yeah. And at that point, then I can change to a plan and apply environment in that case.
Yeah, I think another direction to take a look at. We've had a lot of experience with kind of this with a couple of our customers now. If you store the non-secret information that you need for those things in the Atmos config, like in the settings section of the Atmos config, in your workflow, you can then read that information out for what role to assume, what subscription ID you need, whatever, like any of that kind of thing. You can actually, there's an Atmos command you can run to get the settings section out, and we even have a GitHub workflow, not a workflow, a GitHub action that will extract a particular setting from the settings section for a particular stack, and then you can actually use that as an input variable to part of your, whatever part of your workflow you're using to select all of those different things, like what the environment name is, what the role to assume is, like any of those things you can just take out of Atmos config.
Yeah, that's the Atmos component action, I believe, is it? Or no, Atmos settings.
I think it's
So
get setting.
the get settings. Yeah.
So this leverages the whole inheritance model, so you can and you can use those settings, to Matt's point, in your actions themselves as output.
Yeah, if you scroll down, it actually, I think, is showing how we use an example of it right there. Like, so that's basically now get that out, and then you can actually see we're running basically like you get back like an object that you can read with the JSON, within JSON in your workflow, to be able to use that to then, like in this case, we're extracting like the settings. The secrets aren't to use like where to get a secret value from. Like it's not the actual secret, but it's the ARN to like AWS Secrets Manager as an example to extract a particular secret in this case.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why this whole thing was written, actually, just to do the exact scenario that you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. That's cool. All right. I'm going to work on that. That's cool. Thank you, guys. That's awesome.
All right. What next? Yeah, any other questions we can get answered today? It's totally open-ended. Any questions are okay. Michael posts in the chat. It's the whole merge apply versus PR apply discussion.
Yeah, that was just a snarky remark.
I know,
I do
I know.
appreciate that conversation, because I'm a zealot. So
Well, to be fair, the thing that I was talking, I actually switched to the generic language in the middle of it, because we have like one of the enterprises that we're working with happens to actually only deploy on release. So they basically have pull requests that are running. They actually open pull requests. They see the plan for that. They approve it. They merge it, and they might have 3 or 4 other pull requests before they then generate a release. And then on release, it reruns a plan of everything that has happened since the last release, and then shows them a plan of that. And someone says, yes, this is actually what we want to deploy to production. They approve that, and then it gets deployed out. So I was actually calling it your deployment trigger, which is not necessarily merge. So, and it also, I acknowledge it also can be done prior to merging the pull request as well. But none of the things that I was saying are necessarily prescriptive in that part of it. They all can work. Depending on, depending on which one of those kind of 3 things that you're using.
yeah, and I think that's what makes it really kind of cool, because you can apply those, and I use the word apply here in the wrong way, but you can use any of these approaches however it works best with your environment and the way that people work. Because even like to your point, I appreciate having a person that looks at a plan and says, yes, yea, verily, let's apply this now. And you press the button, unless it's a test environment, a dev environment, or something like that, where it's full continuous delivery and everything. As soon as you push the code, it goes, right? But when you're
Yeah.
talking about a production environment, you want to have that kind of overview of what's going to happen. So in that case, I like, the PR does the plan, you approve the plan, you merge the code, it plans again, and then you say, yes, let's apply this stuff. But I could totally see another flow that says, okay, we apply this PR, we apply this PR, we apply this PR. Now let's do another plan and see what we're going to get. And then, yes, let's apply that. I think it all works.
Yeah. And that tying into what Pepe was talking about, that like your use case there is the exact reason that deployment environments are so good, because you can have your dev deployment environment not have an approval gate in it. It will automatically, as soon as you merge the code in that case, it will automatically deploy out to dev, and no one needs to take a manual action. But your prod deployment environment has an environment protection rule that makes someone actually approve it before it goes forward and deploys it to production. So, and in that case, you can even specify who needs to approve it in order for it to get deployed out to that environment too. So, yeah, tying all these concepts together gives you a lot of flexibility in what you want to do, even if the experience of tying them all together is not the smoothest all the time. But once you get the hang of it and once you've built it out, it can be very powerful.
So there's a question in the chat that I see here. Hi, I'm also doing a security project for a nonprofit, and looks like SSO is only enabled if you have the enterprise option on GitHub. Anyone know if there's an alternative option to this? We also use OpenTofu here. Well, the good news is GitHub has nonprofit pricing, so I would explore that option first before you look at alternatives. And I believe those are negotiated, so depends on your organization and so forth. Alternatives to SSO. So I'm not quite sure the kind of alternative that you're looking for in that case. Like basically SSO, right, is to automatically add or remove people from an organization. So I guess the alternative would be some Terraform code that manages users in the organization. Alternative to GitHub is the question. Well, I think there's really, one mainstream alternative to GitHub. I don't know. Does GitLab charge for SSO?
I mean,
Anyone?
GitLab charges for their whole product, right? So it depends what version
Well, but it's also open source.
Yeah, but I'm saying to get anything useful out of it, you have to pay them
Yeah.
anyway. So
Okay.
there's to anything that would be equivalent to GitHub Enterprise, I should say,
Yeah.
like features. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just checked. It looks like GitHub Enterprise has SSO, but if you're a nonprofit, you can get Teams for free. But Teams does not have SSO. So,
Yeah. But even like GitHub has offers for startups, as you introduced me to, Venkat, right?
It's only for 12 months though. So I assume
Yeah.
after 12 months would be a fire for budget, depending on how big that team is.
Got it.
But yeah, for the first year, if you're a startup and you're less than 2 years or something, like there's usually some time period, you can qualify for 12 months free of GitHub Enterprise. It is not the same. We had when someone we were working with that used it. It is not the same enterprise that you get when you pay the $21 a month, but supposedly you can ask for that same functionality. You basically can't do multiple orgs, not on day one. You have to like request that feature, and they'll probably do another upgrade on your account.
All right. Any other questions for today?
Yeah, I had one. This is old news. So I will defer to Pepe if this has already been discussed. But uh I don't know how I missed this, but GitLab, I guess there was rumors that they are not even rumors, but lots of news that they are exploring a sell, and some uh purchasers would be, or potential purchasers would be, Datadog, maybe Google, and others. So yeah, I just wondered what people's thoughts were on that. I didn't realize this was a thing until yesterday,
I hadn't
but
heard about
apparently this news came out in July of this year.
it. Well, if we haven't heard anything since then, nothing seems imminent, but
Yeah.
Yeah. That was exactly where my mind went, is I wonder if we're gonna see this owned by IBM too.
yeah. Yeah.
Although they have they bought didn't they buy, I think they bought Computer Associates, right? Which has their own like tool for GitHub management or Git management, but it's not very good. So
Yeah. Could see that being interesting. Who was the provider that just was Vercel the one that came out with their own Git solution? What was that?
I believe it was Harness.
Harness did it. Yeah. Harness came out with their own Git alternative. I didn't see that. That seemed like it came out of left field, but
There is GitEA too, which is like more open
Yeah.
source than I think the other options, and I think they're adding features based off what GitHub does.
yeah. Yeah, so that's is it Gitea.org?
I guess I think you may have found it. Wait, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah,
Just Google.
that's a one. We added in Atlantis support for Git too.
Oh, right. Oh, Git. All right.
Yeah,
is it-
Git is
sorry.
pretty cool for self-hosting too.
Okay.
It's got actions runners built into it as well.
Is it using like ACT, or what is it? Or
No, it's all one big Go binary.
huh,
Everything's just built into it.
in Git?
Yes.
And
It
it
has
supports
some
the
form.
same GitHub API, so it's very, very similar. So if you rename your code to the Git client, it most probably is going to work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting.
it's all follow Facebook and move back to Mercurial.
I've never used Mercurial or even the other one. I think Preforce. Use TFS and Git for most of my working career. So I have no idea what I'm missing out on, if anything.
Yeah, that was a facetious comment.
Headaches.
Okay.
Headaches. Yeah.
Mercurial. The only reason that Facebook uses Mercurial is because they have like they hit a point where scale was like a real issue for them, and a lot of things that they were trying to do, and they had a whole list of changes that they went to like the Git maintainers with and GitHub and said, "Hey, we'd like to add all of these things, and we'll provide the engineering power to do it." And basically, the Git guys like shot them down, and they told the Mercurial guys the same thing, and they were like, "Yeah, no problem." And so they just kind of went on with Mercurial, and now they have this like massive changed Mercurial thing.
When you say Git guys, you just mean Linus? Was like no, or is it actually a core?
Well, I think it was a combination of Linus and GitHub, because they wanted to like have a platform for it. So I think there's like a documentary about like I think it was like the founding of React or something, maybe like that they talk about like why their source code tool is still mercurial. It's one of those in there, and they have like a whole like non sequitur on that whole thing right there. Really, really good documentary, by the way, if you're interested in
Yeah.
web development.
You're able to link that either in this chat or
Yeah,
in
it sounds like
Slack.
interesting to watch. I know you
Yeah.
brought it up before, but I didn't see it yet.
Yeah, I'll find it again and I'll post it in the sweetops Slack for everyone that's interested in that.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. No,
All right. Pepe, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, another question. This is an Atmos workflow question. So a coworker of mine had a pretty interesting idea, which I think is good, but I am trying to go past the ideation part to the what is it going to be the backdrops of using that way. So basically, we use Atmos and we have components and so on, but a lot of the developers have no idea about Terraform. Like they're moving from pretty old hand build. It's basically everything is ClickOps, and there's very, very few people that actually know Terraform. So we are helping them with that part. And so what we were thinking to do that I don't know if you guys have ever done it this way is to have, for example, imagine a Lambda function code for a microservice and that has Lambdas and so on. And instead of a developer having to create a PR against the IC repo, the mono repo with Atmos components, and add the YAML there, we were thinking to have like an Atmos folder on the service with the YAML that describes the service based on the component instantiation. And then we were thinking to run vendor pull to pull the component code, run it, trigger the same pipeline that the pipeline that I'm creating for the IC repo, but now passing, basically the sandbox only environment where this is going to get triggered. And basically the YAML for each environment, apart from the core components like VPCs and so on, will live in the IC repo, but everything related to the app will live on the app repo. So the developers don't have to actually create two PRs to get their stuff deployed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have done that before, and if if you guys haven't done it, if there is any drawbacks you can think of.
Yeah. So a few things to think about on that. So yeah, the request you bring up is a logical one, not out of left field or anything. Like, hey, we want to keep application code and application configurations together. At the same time, we have this infrastructure repository which manages like the organizational infrastructure and so forth. Some companies say, well, we want to have the Terraform code with your services repos. And okay, I can get that, but that introduces a big problem as well, because now you have possibly hundreds of application repos that have the ability to do basically anything in that AWS account. And that's a security nightmare. So having the centralized infrastructure repository is actually not a downside. It's actually a security imperative, if you ask me. Okay, so you have this infrastructure monorepo, but you still want to enable these applications to manage their configurations. How can you get the best of both worlds? Well, can you delegate the YAML configs basically as being owned by the application repos and then trigger the infrastructure to be reapplied in the monorepo? So the long and short of it is we have an open project, hasn't kicked off yet, but we're waiting for. I'm saying any day now, but it's taken a while. So we have a customer that is sponsoring optimizations to Atmos specifically for that use case. We're calling it remote configs. However, I think you could do something like what you're suggesting with the vendoring of those configs. The only gotcha is like if you're also relying on the drift detection aspects of Atmos, it's not going to detect that those things drifted. because it's not really aware of them. So that's the only gotcha. So you could do what you said, vendor in those configs from the application repos and get exactly the outcome you want if you're okay with not getting the drift detection right now.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the things that I saw was like, well, if we move this here, drift detection goes away, because like you said, they're not going to be consolidated in one place. Although I could do some crazy stuff on, on the drift detection side, and another workflow grabs all the YAMLs and merge them all together in
So
one
actually,
folder.
Pepe, I take that back. Actually, I think the drift detection will work. What won't work is well, I think
No,
honestly, Pepe,
no, but the drift detection is not going to work because that the environment repos, so the app repos, don't have the whole Atmos stuck. No.
No. So here's the thing. It's just an order of yeah. We need to file a cease and desist, Zach, against Atmosly, I think. But anyways, there's a chat here in the sidebar. So Pepe, I think it's really just an order of operations, and you can get the outcome you want. Let me explain. So when you run Atmos describe affected, for example, it's not going to detect those things as changed. However, if we're talking about Atmos, the drift detection, what that does is it just reruns a plan on everything. So long as you have those configs vendored before you run Atmos drift detection, then it'll be fine because it's going to use those configs when it runs the Terraform plan to determine if anything changed.
Interesting.
Right.
But then it's still okay, because the problem is that since you are going to have yeah, that's right. Yeah, it could work actually. Yeah.
For describe affected to work, that actually compares the Git commits, compares the changes between two commits, and since those in the same repo, and since those files are in different repos, then I don't think we would be able to realistically do a detecting what was
Yeah.
changed.
And we are going to have obviously a YAML in each of the app repos, a YAML for each environment, no? Obviously.
But yeah, which is not a big deal, and that's very straightforward.
No.
And then what your actions would do in your application repos is they would just trigger a workflow. It would be a workflow dispatch in the infrastructure repository, and that will vendor, and then that'll run the commands. I think you can basically get the whole thing working as it is today. Happy to talk more about it if you ever want to schedule some time with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The only thing that I think I have to do outside of, or a little bit hacky, is to share the workflow, because to call from one repo to the other, I think you have to do an API call for the workflow dispatch to work, but that's documented, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, cool. That's cool.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. We are at time for today, so I'm gonna pause there and we'll pick this back up next week, same time, same place. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, just go to youtube.com/cloudposse. You'll find today's recording there, as well as our back catalog of all past episodes. If you're curious about working with Cloud Posse and seeing what we can do for you, go to cloudposse.com/meet, answer a few quick questions, and you'll book a meeting with me directly. Our office hours are syndicated as a podcast. You can go to podcast.cloudposse.com. So if you want to listen to office hours in the car or on the train or however you listen to your podcasts, that's a great way to do it. Our office hours are public. They are free to anyone to join. You can register by going to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, cloudposse.com/office hours. Enter in your email, and well, when Google decides to send you an invite, you'll get it. It's not instantaneous, but not up to us. Our newsletter is a weekly newsletter we syndicate with all the links we talk about on office hours. So if you want to get that, go to newsletter.cloudposse.com and subscribe. Thanks everyone for your time today. We'll be back next Wednesday at 1:30 Central Time, 11:30 Pacific, 2:30 Eastern. Take care.